AI is going to be the biggest shake-up of society since the Industrial Revolution, we're told. It's going to change the way we write emails, buy, sell, build websites, communicate with each other, and make music. The question is, who's going to be making the music? You or the machine? And if it's the machine, what does that mean for you? And how do you feel about it? Welcome to Power Producer TV. Let's get into it.
We'll go higher.
Where's all this going? This AI stuff. Right now, nobody knows. I could make some predictions, and maybe I will later. But I just want to start by kind of pointing to the fact that there's no concrete answer to where this is headed. There's a lot of unknowns here. Court cases over intellectual property playing out, and lots of talk in the media amongst governments and tech companies about all the myriad ways that this is going to affect society on a fundamental level, all this stuff. It creates a lot of fear. It feels it's scary. And that's partly due to the lack of information, due to the lack of knowing where this is going. That creates a void, and in that void we fill it with fear. That's what's happening to a large degree. But it's not just fear, it's anger as well. And I would say that there's a lot of producers angry, there's a lot of artists, musicians, practitioners in the creative industries more broadly, even creative industries, companies who are unhappy, and understandably so, I would argue, because when you see Anthropic literally scanning an entire warehouse's worth of books, in some instances, pirated copies of the books, so they didn't go to the store and buy them, they got them illegally from the internet, and scanned all those, trained their computer to produce work that competes with the same people who wrote those works. Or Suno, whose CEO and founder admitted in court that they just trained their AI on tens of millions of tracks that they hoovered up from the internet. This obviously and necessarily includes copyright protected material. That's audacious. It's really audacious. And of course that's going to make people angry. I'm sure it would make those tech companies angry if, anybody, stole their code. They worked really hard on that. It was their intellectual property. I'm not here to litigate the rights and the wrongs. I just want to point to where the source of the anger is. So I'm saying I get it. I really get it. But there's another dimension to this too that we need to understand as well. Part of the reason why we get so angry about all this, why it feels so charged, so heated, so important, is because there's a level beneath the surface where this causes friction with us on, right? Because music isn't making music, or any form of art, isn't like making a table or making an object, just an inanimate object. When we create our art, for many people, it feels like that work, that creative work, is an expression of us. It's an extension of us as a person. Something of us is captured in that record. It feels personal. Yeah. And And so the idea that someone would take that without asking and throw it into their computer and teach the computer, get the computer to learn something from it, get something from it, extract something from it, and then start replicating some version of that on some level. It feels like a personal violation. And I'm saying this because it's not immediately obvious. Because most of the time we're like, oh, that was copyright protected. That's illegal. Yeah, but maybe the reason why it hurts so much is because of this reason. And I would go a step further than that and say, some artists, not all of them, some artists are very protective, even more so than in the way that I've just described. Their creativity, the work they produce, it comes from a place where it's almost like an inner child. It's almost like a version of them, the most precious core level version of them that exists. That's like their creative source. And, when they produce a song and a piece of work, creative work, it comes from that place. So the idea of, somebody violating that is so, so personal and so, so painful. I think that's another reason why the feelings about all this are so amped up. Making music, being an artist, it becomes part of your identity. It's a lens through which you understand yourself. And what I mean by that is like, when you go meet someone, you say, hi, yeah, my name's Samuel, I'm a music producer, or whatever you say. It's part of who you are. It's part of how you represent yourself, understand yourself. It's tied in with your identity, right? And so when there's a threat to that, as in, damn, AI might steal my job. Maybe if they create machines, they can create the stuff that I make, music, cheaply and fast and more quickly than I can do it. That's a threat. So it's not just a threat to your income. That's the surface level, your job, paying the bills, all that stuff. That's legit, real concern, of course. But the deeper level, the more existential level, is that's a threat to my identity. Because without that, who am I? That's huge. There's no fast answer to that. Who am I without this? But this is the raw edge of this AI situation. There's another dimension. The other part of what I just said, which is it's not just about how we understand ourselves. It's about how other people understand us. It's about how other people perceive us. Because you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Samuel. I'm a whatever. Think about you. Hi, my name's David. I'm a musician. That person understands you as a musician. I'll give you a little anecdote here just to kind of put it in perspective. I've done, when I was younger, I'd done a ton of day jobs. And, people would say to me, one of them was a courier job. And I would arrive at a place, the courier guy's here. See what I'm saying? They refer to me as the job. Later in life, I was on a networking app, and obviously someone had read my profile. And we connected, and they said, "Hi." They call me Music Man. The Music Man. See what I'm saying? It's not just a job. It's the way people understand you and identify you as you is partly by what you do. And when it's under threat, what's also under threat is not just paying the bills, not just, how am I going to survive? How am I going to pay the mortgage? All that stuff, which is big enough. The existential level is about identity. How do you understand yourself? How do you differentiate yourself? What makes you you? And how do other people understand you? How do people differentiate you from someone else? And I think with the arts, with music, there's something else. Again, this is another, it's even more powerful because making music's kind of different. Making music's a rare thing. Not everyone does this stuff. And so it's a big differentiator for who you are, for who I am. And when that's under threat by virtue of economics, that's a big problem because it calls into question what am I without this? But also, if what makes you, if your value, your meaning is perceived by others to be, determined by the fact that you make music, right? There's some intrinsic value in the fact that you do that. And that's how I see you. It's like, wow, you're a bit different. You've got this skill. But now there's a machine who can knock out the same stuff you do in about 25 seconds. Maybe you look less valuable. Maybe the thing that made you so special doesn't look so special anymore. Maybe it's less rare. It's huge. So we started off with, this is, copyright infringement. But when you dig into these levels, you realize that actually, stealing my work isn't just an IP thing. It's almost like they're stealing a bit of me. This is a personal thing. This is an extension of me. There's a bit of me in that record. And this isn't just a career. This is the way I understand myself. It's what makes me me. It's how I introduce myself to other people. What am I without this? I don't even know. And it's the way other people understand me. People understand me as, as a music industry guy. So this is tied into my identity, how I see myself, how I value myself, how other people see me, how they value me, and the specialness of what I do, the intrinsic rarity. And I'm not saying that to big us up. I'm just saying it's a rarefied thing. Not everyone does it. And so, but somehow, our currency gets devalued when a machine comes along and can knock out repeatedly all day when we're asleep even, the stuff that we spent our whole lives learning how to do. Maybe we look less valuable, less special. That's hard. That's existential. These are the kind of dimensions to this AI situation we need to start thinking about. We need to recognize at least. And, there's even more. I wanted to go on for 10 minutes and I've been talking for about 13 minutes or something now. I just want to, I'll mention one more. Which is connected to what I said about it being rarefied and special. This might annoy some people. We spend our whole lives learning how to do music, learning how to produce, learning how to write songs, learning how to do the thing we do. It's a lifelong journey. We commit everything to it. It took us a long time how to work out how to do this stuff, right? So there's a time investment, but also we believe that when we come out with a song, an idea at work, we've spent our whole life learning how to do that. There's something original in it, but I've also studied the works of other people as well. That's how I worked out how they did their thing, and I use that as an information on how to do my thing, right? That's how we learn how to make music broadly. But my thing is my thing. It's original. I came out with that idea. That's my melody, my drums, my bass, my thing. Yeah. That's not even questioned within ourselves. What I'm trying to get around to saying is, if you spent your life learning how to do this thing, and you did that by studying the works of other people, and then you sat down and you created something based on what you'd heard, what is the difference between that and what the machine does? I'm not saying there isn't a difference. I'm not saying I'm not drawing parallels. I'm not saying there's no difference. I'm just asking the question. I think we owe it to ourselves to ask that question. And I get that makes you recoil. But I think the reason why it makes you recoil is because of what I just said a second ago, because it's so precious. Because it feels like an extension of you. That inner child, that version of you that exists in the record is precious. It's the way you identify yourself, understand yourself, it's the way you present yourself, it's the way other people value you, society values you, and what you do. That rarefied commodity that is, artistic output. I think that's why we really don't want to question whether it is any different from what AI is doing. It's not easy for me to say this, because I know it's sensitive, man. It's difficult to even have the question be asked, because it touches that raw place. Yeah. It touches you on that deep level, that existential level. And that's why we want to go, no. Instinctively, really quickly, we spit it back out because the feeling is not nice. The idea that somehow, what I spent the last 25 years of my life doing, studying and learning and evolving and ideating and, crafting, the idea that I'm even going to ask the question, that the very notion that possibly that's no different from a machine being mechanically trained on a bunch of stuff that it didn't pay for and then spitting something out that based off of what it heard. The idea, it's just the question evokes a response, quite a violent response, as in, reactionary, like, no, absolutely not. And I think that is something we need to recognize. Because, and you may be aware, that's one of the lines, it's one of the arguments that's being put forward, and not just by tech companies. And I think it's worth thinking about. Instead of just impulsively, in a reactionary way, just shutting down the idea, shutting down the question. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because, yes, this moment is challenging us on lots of those surface levels that are important about intellectual property. That is important. I'm interested in it. I care about it. We've got jobs here. This is our way of earning money. And if it's under threat, that's a real concern. They're legit, but these are all surface level. And if we need to find solutions to these challenges, for sure. in order for us to respond to these challenges as effectively as we can, in a way that gets the outcome that we want, to handle this stuff well, to think, in a composed, strategic manner that gets us the best outcome as individuals, as creatives, as an industry. In order to get that good outcome, in order to handle this the best we can, we need to understand all the dimensions to the challenge. That's why I'm saying this stuff. And as I alluded to in my last point, what that means for us now, or initially, is not, the questions of who am I without this? Is there a difference between what I do and what the machine does? If there's less value in what I do, or if there's less perceived value in what I do, what does that mean? Where is my value? I thought it was really valuable. I thought it was really special what I was doing. I thought that process of ideation was really unique and really human and really more about what comes out of my brain as a unique thing. Maybe it wasn't that unique. Maybe it's really close to what this machine can do. I thought it was a version of me. Maybe it wasn't. And if that's the case, where is the value? I'm not saying there isn't any value. I'm not even saying I'm not making any assertions. I'm saying these are the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves, because asking the question doesn't necessarily mean we need an immediate answer. There's an amazing saying from a very famous philosopher. And the saying is, in between a stimulus and a response, there is a space. And in that space lies our ability to choose how we react. And in being able to choose how we react lies our freedom. What that means is, these are challenging questions I'm asking. We don't need an immediate answer. Sometimes all we need to do is just stay with the question for a bit. Instead of reacting initially and just saying, no, doesn't mean that. Yes, that's absolutely right. No, I'm not, stay with the question. And if you can stay with the question, there's a space there. That's where the useful stuff usually arises within. And if we can come to terms with whatever comes up in that space, we can find the level of composure, authenticity, and strategy needed in order to meet this moment of challenge for our careers, for our art, for our industry. I'll see you next time.